Welcome back to the late day wrap up, of which we have a very special one today because my voice is actually wrecked from this morning's sermon. So with that said, forgive the little bit of a drawn back tone today, and we'll get through this one maybe a little bit faster than typical. So with that said, I would like to wish you the best, and the happiest. And because it is a late day wrap up, I should remind you that if you want the more long-term in-depth analysis, check out the long-term analysis playlist. Actually, that would be a great place to start for Bitcoin especially. And you can also check out this morning's video as well, of which there's some fun little stuff in there. Anyways, with that said, we'll start off with Dixie as always. And we are just seeing a general continuation here, as we did say, that was likely up to about 93.5 to 94 bucks over the next month and a half to, well, probably just month to 2 months, I'd imagine here, as this is looking very, 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 very good for following through on the macro reversal, which is going to put downwards pressure on anything that trades versus the dollar. Now, of course, this is more or less more important for Forex traders, of course. Now, it is going to have implications elsewhere as well. But if you are trading Forex, I'm generally going to be bullish on the US dollar pairings, meaning that the base US dollar is going to be bullish, at least in my eyes here. In general, of course, there's going to be a few one-offs here and there after all. But with that in mind, I'd be looking for this one to continue onwards and upwards, very likely for the next maybe even a couple of years to be quite serious. Because anytime that we have seen about a 3-month long slog at the lows, which is exactly what we said back down around here, or exactly what we saw back down around here, I should say, we have seen these prolonged rally attempts. You can see this past one coming in from March 2018. Sounds rather familiar now, doesn't it? As this one goes all the way up from about March 2018 to a recent high of about March 2020. So last year, right before coronavirus dumb times. So quite literally about a 2 to 3 year long uptrend. On top of that, we see this one from 2011, same sort of thing, going all the way up from 2011 to a high in 2016 actually. The one before that in 08, from basically 08 to about a year and a half later in 09, before carrying on a little bit of downside action. And then of course before that we do have 95 and 90 and even 87 over here if you want to get super historical. Anyways, all of these taking at least a year or more in many cases. So with that in mind, looking at this right here, I do look for this to essentially continue onwards and upwards for probably for the next few months. Anyways, looking at the monthly right here, should also be denoted that we do see potential, very well, I'd say extremely likely that this is going to confirm hidden bullish divergence between this low and this low, making significantly lower lows on RSI and just about higher lows on price action. So I do like that. And again, that's going to have a pretty easy target back up, actually not just 93.5, but like 94.25, and probably even more over time on top of that. I wouldn't be surprised to see this kind of wedge itself into some sort of an ascending triangle with the top side at around 99.25 and a bottom side right around about 90 bucks. Even. So with that in mind, again, I'm going to be just generally bullish on any US dollar pairings. Anyways, we'll take that and we'll go over into Nasdaq over here and check out the big three. We got Nasdaq coming down to our 12.7 target, of which it looks like it's already been hit. And would I be extending this further to the downside, especially after taking out 19th of March low? Yes, I would. I'd actually extend this all the way down, very likely to about 12.5-ish region, retest the last sort of daily low within this territory right here. However, I would be looking for a bounce within this region, but we quite literally have a downtrend now. We have lower lows and lower highs, and this is yet again another lower high. And more importantly, we see that the TSI is actually having a nice downturn once again here too. This is extremely likely to confirm with any sort of a closure below 12.750. So I'd even say that this is front runnable, as this is essentially, I mean, it's not necessarily a full-on retest of the zero read right here, which I did upload a video on how to use this indicator yesterday, and last night I guess, which was about half a day ago. Anyways, looking at this right now, I would be looking at this as very likely a continuation signal down to not just 12.5, but probably like 12.350, anywhere around here, around that prior low. I would be looking for another bounce attempt on the short and medium term time frames, and then kind of judge if it once has continuation on top of that. Now we are getting closer and closer to the monthly close. There is still about a little bit less than a week left. I think next Wednesday is the last day of trading within the month. So I think it's going to be a little bit too early to kind of be judging anything that we see right here just yet. If this thing does close above 13,000 bucks, I'll actually still be bullish long term. If it closes below, I wouldn't necessarily say that I'd be bearish, but I'd probably be looking for a prolonged pullback, maybe for the next month or two. Anyways, moving on to SPY, what do we have right here? Yep, coming down to our 38.50 target, of which would I extend that further to the downside similar to NAS? And a little bit more here, 38.30, and I'd probably be looking for bounces somewhere around the 377 exponential average. And we do see lots of, well, you might refer to this as liquid zone, you might refer to this as an order block, whatever the fuck you want to refer to it as, is structural support anywhere around this region right here. So I would be looking for bounces relatively soon. But ultimately, again, we do have a continuation of downtrend, most importantly. So the reversal is real. And remember, this was like a big focus on the last couple days analysis, having that bearish bias, and I would essentially be following through with that, playing out that bearish divergence from the last high right around around here. So I would be looking for, yes, again, actually this one to head a little bit lower, somewhere around about 38.30 before the next sort of short-term, medium-term bounce, perhaps. On top of that, let's go to Dow Jones, one of the stronger ones, but this one now following through with all of the rest of the major indices and quite literally breaking below the 21 exponential moving average pretty much as we speak. I would be looking for this one to actually make a nice gun towards wherever the 55 is, about 31,600 overall. But does that mean it's going to happen exactly right here, right now? Probably not, to be fair. Let's go down to a 4-hour. I believe we did have a target from this morning's video somewhere down around about 32,200. That's obviously already been met, overshot a little bit here. Short-term time frames, though, I would be looking for a bounce in the interim, somewhere around about 31,850 to 31,800-ish region, which we're rapidly approaching right here. Again, TSI says momentum remains to the downside, and while it is getting more and more aggressive, it's going to be difficult to to hold up over time. So with that in mind, I probably would be looking for a bounce, at least on the short-term time frames around that region. Moving on to Goldie, where's my Goldilocks? 1737. Okay, so I was wrong about this one yesterday. Yesterday I was actually looking for this one to come down back around 1715, of which it looks like we just went sideways, basically sideways in a range, crazy as hell now, isn't it? Anyways, looking at the daily right here, does this one fight itself through? Again, overall, my main disposition on this one is that it still does very likely carry out this bounce here. So does it continue the bounce from where we're postured at right now at about 1735? Actually, I think that's very much relevant to say. In fact, I still don't think looking for a move towards 1775 or maybe even 1800 over the next month of April. Is that what's after March? April. Yeah, April. That's it. Jesus, my voice is already nails on the chalkboard right now. Raspy lesbian coming out to play here. So I do have to kind of keep it nice and curtailed, but overall, yeah, I do think that this one does play out a little bit of bounce here, regardless of whether you're bullish or bearish. This one was beat up quite a fair bit to the downside. I think that it just generally gets a pity bounce off the 21 exponential average as assets, or sorry, as bots and algos typically like to just kind of close positions on that region, which will obviously create a little bit of upside pressure here. I think that probably carries itself on into April, and then around that upper $1,700 target, maybe even low $1,800 target. I would be looking for potentially another lower high, but for now, sideways and probably up is what I'm looking for there. Anyways, on to Bitcoin, of which we're just seeing continuation on the downside. We did say that as long as Bitcoin is below the 200 simple, very likely it does continue onwards and forwards to our next short-term, medium-term targets, a little bit below 50,000 bucks, of which thus far we have a low just below 50,500-ish region. I'm curious if this is consistent on other exchanges. We got Coinbase at 5,300. We got Stamp at 5,350 actually, and we got Finex at 350 as well. So actually BitMexico is kind of the odd man out, a little bit more. You could call it Bull Mexico if you want, but overall, I still do think that this one has a little bit further downside to go. TSI still says momentum remains to the downside. Now, of course, it is getting the critical zone here, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult for the momentum to actually keep itself, in that posturing. Of course, we are being governed by this trend line right here, so I'd keep a keen eye on that. Meaning that if we actually do see the TSI break this trend line, that should be an early indication that Bitcoin's going to put in, a greater bounce, like not just on a short-term time frame, but on a medium-term time frame. Very likely a multi-$1,000 bounce right there. So I would quite like that. But again, I pretty much have the same things to say as I said this morning. I'm generally looking for the downside here. I want to see Bitcoin, or it's not that I want to see, but I would imagine that Bitcoin more or less likely to play out the 3-day bearish divergence, 1, 2, 3 stabs off the high right there. A little bit of Joule sell signal as well, and 21 exponential average is almost always going to be my target on that one, which is just above 48,000 bucks. I believe that's also in line with the 10 simple on the weekly here as well. And if we do go over to our secondary charts, which I actually don't have up right now, let's just do this. By the way, Dr. Danger, do you see the scale on the right hand side? Thanks actually for reminding me on that one, man. Much love, brother. Anyways, looking at this over here on the daily specifically, we do see that the bottom side Toronto band is actually right around 49,000 bucks. So anywhere between about 48,000 to 49,000 bucks is essentially where I'm looking for on a greater bounce for this asset. Could it be a potential major reversal? Yes, I do think so. But if Bitcoin really starts to break below, especially the last weekly low, which is about 45,000 bucks right here, I would be prepared to look for Bitcoin to go back down below 40,000 bucks and play out some sort of a move towards the 20 simple or 21 exponential average on the weekly, which is around like 37 to 39,000 bucks off the top of my head. But for right now, Again, we also see that same sort of interplay between the green 55 exponential average and the bottom side Toronto band here. Anytime that we have seen the green 55 cross to the downside of the bottom side Toronto band, at the very least, price action has been brought back down to the bottom side of the Toronto band, sometimes overshoots, as you see right here, bases on the 55 as well, by the way. Same thing over here, you see another iteration. Same thing over here. This one obviously shoots through. Same thing over here on this one. This one basically holds onto it as well. So overall, I do quite like this. At the very least, test this region right here, and many other things, from other different time frames coming within that region as well. If we go back down to our main charts over here and put on our drawing tools, you can say very easily that there's a nice little order block within this region right here, which is essentially overlaid between 48,000 and 49,000 bucks. So anywhere within there, and I imagine, I imagine things get, rather wicky around this time too. If we actually do this properly, then it will actually be on the bottom end at 48,000 bucks, lining up exactly with the 377. Now, of course, that is rising over time. Now, I do want to again be on record as saying that long-term macro, I actually don't think that the rally's done. Actually, would still be long-term bullish on Bitcoin, but juxtapose that against the short-term, medium-term. No, I still think that Bitcoin has a little bit more downside here, and very likely continues. And if Bitcoin does break below 45,000 bucks, I'd probably be looking for one more. I'd probably be looking for like a 3-month long-ish type sideways and downwards consolidation, setting up for the next mega macro move. Perhaps something similar to what we saw back over in 2013 before the 2014 parabolic blow off top. Talk about this baby over here, where Bitcoin essentially just went vertical, then consolidates for about 3-4 months, it looks like, and then vertical again, basically. But because this rally has been so fucking aggressive to the upside, I do think that that's, certainly a potential. We see the pi cycle indicator coming, dangerously close right now too. Still not necessarily there, but overall it's getting pretty damn close. So I do think that it's a little more time, a little bit of a better time to be cautious. I mean, remember, like, to put things into perspective, without Moonboy googly eyes, Bitcoin basically went from its all-time high of about 20,000 bucks to 6,000 bucks, which is a 220% move. If we take that move basically from the start of the uptrend, which we really got bullish at around 11,500, I'll just take this from 12,000 bucks, but that's a 40% move. I mean, these are pretty fucking massive. And historically speaking, while that is a little bit more on the lower end for these macro rallies, I wouldn't be surprised to see like a greater, maybe 30 to 40% pullback from that region before setting up for the next, mega move. Now, out of curiosity, a move down from where we're at right now to the 21 would be about 37, probably crawling up to about 35% over the next week or two. So with that in mind, again, I do still stay long-term bullish. I actually don't think that Bitcoin's done here just yet to the upside, but that can take some while. I mean, we might be looking at continuation perhaps later in Q3 or Q4 of this year. And honestly, if Bitcoin does take more time going sideways and downside, consolidating, probably does align with the market cycle elongating itself and perhaps even plotting some greater upwards targets as well. So I actually think that that's more of a long-term healthy thing. Again, I know that moon boys want this thing to go to fucking moon mode like immediately, but at the end of the day, man, that's that's just like in some ways. Well, no, I won't complete that sentence. You already fucking know, man. This channel, though, as always, is focused on traders, not on fucking moon boys or doom boys for that matter. So we want to keep our heads, on as straight as possible when we're not giving fucking sermons early in the morning and acting like fucking crazy people. That would be me, sir. Apologies for that. Anyways, we also got the daily 55 coming in right around where? About 49,000 bucks as well. So several things lining with that region. So I do like anywhere between about 48 to 49 as a nice bouncy bounce area. I understand that that's a massive range of about $1,000, but this asset is so fucking wicky and volatile that, when you get into those regions, which I imagine there's going to be a little bit of panic around those regions, you could very easily get like a wick down to 48,000 bucks, close at 49, and then play out a bit of a bounce from there. And that's kind of what I want to incorporate here, as this is slowly but surely starting to tip on over. Anyways, is there anything else that I want to be aware of on the daily here? To be fair, as long as Bitcoin's above about 45,000 bucks, we still do have actually hidden bullish evidence potentially present. I think this is a little more obvious on CMEs here too, because CME actually never really put in a downtrend. We don't really have like a higher low somewhere over here. Our last higher low is actually way the fuck back on in 1st of March, in fact, at about 45 to 46,000 bucks. So, as long as Bitcoin's put in a higher low above there, we actually will naturally have hidden bullish evidence on the other side. And could that be a continuation point? Yeah, could be. Certainly could be. So with that said, I would curtail both my both my bullishness and my bearishness, depending upon the time frame here. And with that said, I think it's time for me to wish you well. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, what would be a condition that would make me not essentially bearish, extremely short term, essentially like not looking for the next move down to that $48,000 to $49,000 target? Well, it's actually quite simple. It's the same region as this morning, right? As long as Bitcoin's below the 200 simple, or now we could just use the 200 exponential average because it's a clear rejection here. 1, 2, 3, boom, and then down. Fucking classic shit right there. So I'd say as long as we're below there, there's really no reason to be looking for a reversal at all whatsoever, even on the short-term time frames. And that level is about just below $53,000. By the same token, no point in being medium-term bullish as long as Bitcoin's below this last local high, which yesterday, was what was right around about $58,000, now about $56,500. So getting marked down a little bit more and more, but that would technically be easier to overtake to the upside, I suppose, at the same time. So depending upon how you kind of want to posture that. At the end of the day, I do think that this one's just going to require a little bit of patience here. So with that said, I would like to wish you the best and the happiest. Take care, and until next time.